so much stuff happened this year that was negative, and then we had the merge, which was like the most positive event in Ethereum's history happening among all that negative that was happening to the rest of the crypto ecosystem. And I know in Bitcoiner land, they love to make this distinction between like Bitcoin and crypto, right? And as much as I kind of hate them for doing that because they put Ethereum in the crypto bucket and they don't never make the distinction about Ethereum, I think there's something to that, because there's a lot of crypto that is hot air, that is just crap, right? We've seen a lot of it blow up, and there are things that are kind of labeled crypto that shouldn't be, like a lot of these CeFi services that people say, oh, this is crypto. It's like, no, it's not crypto, right? It's kind of a service that works with crypto, but it's not what we know as crypto, right? The on-chain stuff that we do, the networks behind this industry. So I think from that perspective, sometimes the Bitcoiners have a point that there should be a little bit of a distinction there between those things. But in saying that, I think on top of all of that as well, in terms of market action, yeah, I mean, it's quite surprising to an extent of like how, I guess, resilient ETH has been. I think for a lot of people, it's not surprising to me, I should be clear. Like I fully expected it to play out like this, given the position ETH is in right now, not just on the fundamental side, but also with EIP 1559 and the merge having that massive issuance reduction, which definitely impacted ETH's performance this bear market. I mean, without that, I think post FTX collapse, ETH would have gone to triple digits again. It would have been pushed down by all that extra miner sell pressure because miners were capitulating on the Bitcoin side, and there's no reason to believe they wouldn't have been doing the same thing on the Ethereum side. So I think that a lot of the fundamental work that has been done has come home to roost, so to speak. Like, this is years in the making. As I mentioned earlier, Ethereum has a long roadmap. It takes years to do things, but it does things that are extremely impactful and continue to impact the network and the community and the ecosystem over longer periods of time. Whereas a lot of these alt-tail ones, they try to take shortcuts, right? They try to get to a position where they think that they can be as dominant as Ethereum, and sometimes they can get to a position where they grow really, really quickly, right? Both on the price side and see some kind of adoption. Maybe that's because they have a massive liquidity mining program, but then it's all short-term games. It doesn't last very long. It doesn't even last a year, really. I mean, we saw the alt-tail one mania happen basically the second half of last year, and then we saw it all fall apart this year, and it fall apart in a very spectacular way. Not just on the prices, as you said, a lot of them are down 95%, but their network activity is down even more. And even the biggest competitors that people considered to be, actual Ethereum killers, like we always hear that term, but people were really serious about it this time. Like, no, Ethereum's finally done it. They've failed to scale, so now these other networks are going to take over. I mean, just to name one, Solana, for example, they have less kind of TVL than chains that I haven't even heard of before. So, like, to put that in perspective, Solana last year was considered the ETH killer. It was going to be the thing that finally dethroned Ethereum, but as DC mentioned, these other L1s have taken shortcuts. They've compromised on specific things, and Solana is definitely a poster child of that, compromising on decentralization to achieve this scale. And in my opinion, they've gone the wrong way about it, and I think we've seen that. But you can take the other side of that and say, okay, well, this is just Solana and the other alt-tail ones trial by fire. And I'm like, I don't really buy that. I feel like Ethereum is in such a strong position now. Ethereum is solving its scalability issues, and it's never just been about scalability. It's been about so many other things. But Ethereum is in such a strong position compared to what it was last bear market. I mean, 2018 and 2019 was very brutal for Ethereum and for ETH as an asset. But this time around, people can see that ETH, as Ryan said, is not down like anywhere near the amount the other coins are down, right? And it's even up or performing better than Bitcoin. I mean, the ETH BTC ratio is flat on the year. In 2018 and 2019, it went down like 90+%, which was just crazy compared to now where it's flat on the year. So taking all that into account, Ethereum is in an incredibly strong position, even though there has been so many blowups this year of just all the crap like CeFi and within the on-chain ecosystem, and other alt-tail ones, as you mentioned. It's kind of hard for me not to be like stupidly bullish on Ethereum. I was really bullish in the bull market. I'm even more bullish in the bear market, just given how resilient Ethereum has been.
There is no second best to Ethereum is the message out from some of the most experienced crypto experts who predict that Ethereum will be the #1 asset to perform in the next bull market. In their latest interview, Anthony Sassano and DC Investor, two crypto experts and OGs who have been around the crypto space coming up on a decade, break down exactly why they are extremely bullish on Ethereum heading into 2023, and why, because of the successful merge seen in 2022, now is the time to be buying. With a lot of FUD and mudslinging aimed towards Ethereum as an investment over the last few weeks, they provide a balanced perspective on why Ethereum is the best risk to reward asset to be accumulating now. Make sure to stick around to the end of the video where both DC Investor and Sassano break down exactly how they think the next bull run is going to play out. Also, only a small percentage of my viewers are actually subscribed. If you enjoy finance content, consider subscribing or liking the video. It's free and you can always change your mind.
First, I want to start with the broader point. Crypto goes through cyclical bear markets. It is an asset class with a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential around what's being built on networks like Ethereum. And when you have that kind of potential, market excitement tends to sometimes get ahead of itself. That's why we get these really exciting bull markets. We are now seeing the reverse side of that, and the consequences of that are we are seeing the bear, where we have people who are in this space as tourists. They've left. We've had this spectacular collapse of multiple trading funds and now FTX, one of the most prominent consumer exchanges. It's bad. I mean, it's definitely bad just from a fundamentals point of view. But from a market sentiment point of view, things are very bad. It reminds me very much of the early days, like 2013, when Mt. Gox kind of got hacked and had their issues. The market just lost confidence. You had a lot of lower information people get flushed out. So I want to put that on the table. But I think that what differentiates Ether from all of those networks that you just discussed is that Ethereum is a successful multi-cycle asset. Ethereum is a network that has proven itself time and time again and continues to gain users. It continues to gain developers. Sure, interest is down during this bearish period, but Ethereum isn't going anywhere. I actually feel a lot more confident about Ethereum and Ether this year than I did in 2019. It was bad. That was rough times. And there were some existential questions like, was Ethereum going to survive? I mean, I had confidence, but it was just that. It was confidence. I didn't have that degree of surety. I feel like with Ether and Ethereum now, that surety is much, much stronger. With a lot of these other networks, look, I'm not saying that they're all going to die or go to zero, but some of them very well could. Most of those are first cycle assets. To the extent that they aren't first cycle assets, they never delivered anything of value before this cycle. And you could argue some of them didn't even deliver anything of value this cycle, to be perfectly honest, not to be too harsh. But, when I look at Ether and Ethereum, I think it emerges with actually a much stronger and more exceptional and unique value proposition. Ether right now is the most decentralized programmable asset in the world, period. We've taken this incredible step of moving it to proof of stake, which was one of the big clouds hanging over Ether and Ethereum. Like, is it going to successfully do this? We did it, and we did it without a hitch. We've moved Ethereum to become a network that is economically secured by Ether, which is also incredible. So I suspect that during the next cycle, Ether is actually going to get a lot more market interest. It's going to be sought after by financial types who want to earn a yield from the staking. It's going to be sought after by people who want an alternative store of value to something like Bitcoin, which is secured by proof of work. And so and it's going to become an increasingly popular medium of exchange for things like NFTs and other digital goods and services. So I'm hyper bullish. And after the FTX collapse, I kind of came out on Twitter and I said, I'm going to start buying again. I've been dollar cost averaging 1 to 2 times a week since then. And do I think all the pain is over? It's really hard for me to say that with certainty. We could definitely see like spikes down. We could even see new lows. But for me, I'm not going to try to play that game. And the example, I know, David, you saw this tweet when I put it out there a few weeks ago. And I said, do you think the people who bought Ether at $120 are upset that they didn't buy it at 80? And I'm one of those people. I didn't buy Ether at 80 during the last bear market, but I bought a lot between 100 and 120. And I didn't worry about the fact that I didn't buy it at 80. So you may have missed 800. I don't know if that's coming back. Right now you can buy it for 1,200. Maybe you'll be able to buy it for cheaper and more expensive tomorrow. But I think that you've got to have like a long-term outlook if you're in the space right now. In two sets of arguments. In the near term, look at Ether as an asset. And I think Ether is a much higher quality asset than many people understand or give it credit for. I think Ethereum bulls like us understand it, but for a lot of the space, a lot of them only really came to appreciate the value proposition this cycle. And I think this is going to just grow to the point where it wouldn't surprise me if Ether is the dominant crypto asset by the end of the next cycle. It's bullish in the sense of that's potential market opportunity, right? And I think as like another big dynamic that I think people should think about, by the way, is like during this next cycle, so you already see organizations like Fidelity, which is a big brokerage house here in the US, primarily focused on stocks and equities. They are spinning up their crypto operation. It will be live probably in the next year or two. And once that goes live, the previous generation of, we'll call them the boomers and above and slightly younger, their reservations about getting into crypto because they didn't want to work with some sketchy exchange or whatever, that's all going to go away. And they're going to be able and willing in some cases to start buying. But I do want to talk just near term about Ether. Look, mining is gone, okay, which was a huge detriment and kind of weight that hung around Ethereum's neck, I think, in a lot of ways, but specifically with proof of work, OPEX, right, was expensive. And so miners would have to sell their Ether pretty much after they earned it to continue operating in a lot of cases. Issuance is at the lowest amount that it's ever been because of proof of stake. We're burning Ether via EIP 1559 in a significant capacity. And I mean, like, I just look at these things and the price is below what it was in at the top of the 2018, 2017 bull market. It blows my mind. Look, I think honestly, when I look at the space right now, like the next 2 years are going to be probably ugly. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think if you're in the space right now, be committed and be focused on this long-term vision. But Ether, in my opinion, is on the verge of becoming the most important decentralized crypto asset, and certainly the most important decentralized crypto financial asset. And it's going to become the world's best natively programmable asset. And there's basically unchallenged for that use case and for its level of liquidity and fungibility. I think that's huge. And I mean, Justin alluded to this as well, but as you guys know, I'm super bullish on NFTs as well. NFTs as a whole ecosystem, and there's going to be a lot more than art and collectibles. But some of these art and collectibles have held up surprisingly well through what has been a heinous bear market so far. These are being held by collectors as true store of value assets. And I think having like store of value assets on Ethereum that are not just Ether only makes Ether even stronger, to be honest. It creates a virtuous cycle and economy that can build around that. So I don't, in the past, I know some people have viewed those things as potentially threatening to Ether. I think that's totally the wrong way to look at it. Ethereum is the only public blockchain which has a significant economy of digital goods and services on it, period. And I think that's just going to increase by leaps and bounds over the course of the next 4 years.
So I think that for me, one of the most bullish things that has happened is that, I guess, like supply chains that we had with the merge, right? That massive issuance reduction, which is basically almost 100%, right? If we were still on proof of work, we would have issued, I think, 1.1 million ETH net of the burn. So that's including the burn. And then with proof of stake, with, you know, post merge, then this is since the merge, we've only issued 1,294 ETH, which is almost a 100% reduction in net issuance in 3 months. And today it's been 90 days. So it's been about 3 months since the merge. Now, of course, against USD, ETH has done nothing since the merge. Like, we all know that, right? But I look at ETH against other assets, and looking at against Bitcoin, it has performed so extremely well against Bitcoin in a bear market, which basically destroys every narrative that has gone on about Bitcoin being the flight to safety asset in bear markets, right? Now, if ETH is the flight to safety asset in a bear market, if ETH is the best performing asset in a bear market, what's it going to do in a bull market when we don't have this minor sell pressure, when we have the burn offsetting a lot of the issuance because activity goes up? What happens when people realize that the staking APYs or APRs are so good and you're getting it on an appreciating asset as well as time goes on? What happens when people realize that ETH is the only decentralized digital commodity money, programmable digital commodity money in existence? And not only is it not only does it exist in such a way that makes its value accrue to itself. It doesn't just exist and the value leaks to everything around it. The value accrues to itself. The value accrues to holders. No longer is value accruing to miners who don't hold the ETH. They're forced to sell. It is now accruing to stakers, which are much less likely to sell because their costs are much lower, but they're also much more aligned with being ETH holders because they hold ETH. Like, miners didn't have to hold ETH. They held ASICs, right? They held mining machines. So it was kind of like that split there. And then we also have the burn, which obviously all the activity or most of the activity that happens on the network burns ETH and brings it back into ETH as an asset, as a value accrual mechanism. So you take all that into account, and like, I don't know how you can be bearish on ETH. I mean, even in the bear market, the gas prices obviously are much lower, but we're still burning millions of dollars of ETH per day. And that's all going to pay dividends when demand comes back, I believe. And it's already paid dividends against BTC for ETH, but against USD, it's just going to take a bit longer to play out. But as people have said throughout this podcast, like this is not the time to be bearish. I personally think that we're in an accumulation range, as they call it, where as DC was saying, like no one's going to care if they buy at 1200 versus 800 in the future, like in a few years, right? Just like I didn't care that I actually bought a lot at $220 and then ETH went to $80. I didn't care about that. It took like over 2 years for me to actually be in profit on that buy, but eventually I didn't care. So if you have a long-term mindset, if you understand the bull case for Ethereum and ETH as an asset, if you understand it really deeply and can see the writing on the wall, so to speak, then you're buying ETH today, basically. And that's basically my reason, or at least most of my reason for buying now, even though I bought much earlier too, right? Like I bought the majority of my ETH between $1 and $200. And just because I bought that doesn't mean that I'm not buying now. I see the opportunity still. I see the massive market opportunity. I see that ETH is below its 2017/18 high, as DC said, which is just insane to me. And I think that, you know, people will talk about, global macroeconomic forces and all this other stuff happening. It's like, yes, okay, that plays into it. Obviously, as rates go up, debt is harder to get, money's harder to get, things will kind of soften there. But there's always people looking for opportunity. There's always investors looking for opportunity. Now, are you going to look for opportunity in old world stuff that's boomer, that all the boomers have, like real estate? Like young people aren't interested in real estate, right? They can't even afford real estate because it's so expensive. They don't want to buy a lot of stocks because stocks are just, I don't know, they're boring, right? Then you have this new thing, this new crypto economy, this new exciting thing that has all these use cases, and it's all happening on Ethereum. And then you want to stake in the ecosystem. Well, you buy ETH, right? Like you buy ETH to have that stake in the ecosystem, and then you literally can stake it to have a literal stake in the ecosystem as well. And then you accrue that value too. You accrue an ETH denominated yield. So like taking all that together, I know I'm going off in a million different directions right now, but that's because like every one of these things that I'm talking about has a million different threads you can pull out and kind of go down. I do think that ETH is the best positioned asset in the world right now to outperform pretty much everything else. And yes, okay, there are smaller cap things that in a bullish period might go up faster, right? Because they're just smaller cap, they're easier to move. But I'm talking over the long term, like bulls and bear markets, something to store your wealth. I believe that there is literally no second best to ETH right now. I know that's a meme, but like I do believe there's no second best to ETH. And a lot of the reasons I just outlined is why I believe that.